This month we're sharing stories, and I want to share a little bit of my personal story because I think me being vulnerable and sharing a little bit will possibly, maybe, help you. Hi there, I'm Justine Calderwood, physical therapist, owner here at the Healing Spot Physical Therapy. And I want to tell you about the very first time that I ever took a women's health class. So what that means is like pelvic floor physical therapy. So going into the vaginal area internally to treat. Okay, so I want to tell you first, it took me, first of all, going way back 20 years ago to the beginning of my career, I remember saying multiple times, there is no way I will ever do pelvic floor physical therapy. I mean, I had such an aversion to it. I was so resistant to it. I had a lady come in, I will never forget her. She came in after a car accident and she had coccyx pain. And I read up on it and was like, okay, you'd have to go like into the rectum, stick your finger in this lady's rectum to treat her coccyx. And I remember talking to my coworkers, and my boss in particular was Steve, a great boss, but he's like, are you going to do that? I'm like, hell no, no way, I can't do that. And it was such a disservice to her. One, I didn't feel fully trained. I shouldn't have done it anyway. I wasn't trained in that, in the internal work. But I had such an aversion to it. And the reason is because I had so much that I personally needed to heal about my pelvic floor. I had some trauma, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt stuck in my pelvic area that I was not ready to address 20 years ago for sure. So it was about 10 years ago that I started the training that I know now with myofascial release. And that changed my life. But it was no internal work, but it planted a seed for me to consider it. And I remember learning from some other MFR therapists that the women's health course with John Barnes was an option. And I was like, planted a seed, but I was still very resistant to it. And then it took me, I don't even know, probably took me 2 years at least to even be like, okay, I think I'm ready to consider this. So to give you an idea, I'm going to tell you about one experience during this class. So up until that point, I'd already done some work. I'd already done some healing for about 2 years' time, all external, a lot of great layers that I was getting through, a lot of rocky stories that were coming up and feelings for me. So in this class, we have to be therapist and we have to be patient. So you always have to receive the work so you can give, like, have an idea what it feels like and the vulnerability that it takes in order to allow somebody in this very packed seminar room of over 100 people, probably 200 people or so, are in this hotel room, seminar room. You got instructors walking around, one with a headlamp so he can see better in your pelvic area. Okay, very vulnerable. You're laying on a massage table, you're draped, got a blanket over you or a sheet, towel, but it's very vulnerable. And I remember my husband asking me, you sure you want to do this, Justine? I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. I might be wasting my time and my money going to this class and I might never use it, but I gotta go find out. So I went, and yeah, it took me a little while to get there, right? And so then we also have to, I'm going back, we have to be therapists as well. So obviously we're practicing the techniques, but it's very important to know that anything that I've learned as a pelvic floor physical therapist, that I've received that work. I know what it feels like to be on that table and to be vulnerable and question what's going to come up here. How am I going to react? Am I going to start crying? What am I going to feel? It's very emotional, especially if you've had a history of trauma. Okay, if you've been violated, if something's been coerced, you've been, you haven't given consent for things that have happened to you, right? So I was working with this therapist that I very much trust from Las Vegas, and she was releasing my cervix, and it felt like she had a nail sticking in. I was like, gosh, I feel so sharp. Is that your fingernail? And she goes, no, Justine, I promise you, it's the finger pad. And I was like, gosh, it hurts. And she goes, okay, go into that. What is that? What I found out was it was related to like a well woman exam in the speculum. I said, it feels like it was bringing up a memory of like the speculum of, and if you're a woman, you understand this, it's not comfortable being on a treatment table with a little paper sheet in this cold room in a freaking gown, and sometimes you're not approached with respect and care. But what came up for me was I was so young. So this is very vulnerable. I hope I don't cry, but if I do, whatever. But I became sexually active way too soon, way too young. And that's what it brought up, was just all the guilt and the shame that I had from that. And and I just started crying. And she's like, and she didn't know what was going on. But I just told her, it's just bringing up like my first PAP and where I was at in life as a teenager, and the decisions that I made. And I wish I would have loved myself enough to not have started being sexually active as young as I did. But I can't change that. And so what I did in that moment was just feel all the uncomfortableness and the vulnerability and the shame and the guilt and the I wish I would have been better, but I wasn't. And so what I needed, and I just asked my body, what do you need? Forgiveness, understanding where you were at the time and why you made those decisions, and forgive yourself. And that's what I did. And it softened and the pain went away. And that's what I needed to do. So I wanted to share that because that's the kind of stuff that's stuck in our bodies. Sometimes it's pelvic floor area that we have to go into and relieve to get rid of pain. And I don't have pain, I will tell you. I've never had pain with, say, intercourse or pelvic area, but that's what my body was holding on to. So I hope in some way this helps you to see that, one, I got my own stuff, you have your own stuff, and I'm here as a guide, and so is any of our staff here at the Healing Spot. We get it. We have our own stories and our own healing processes, but we're here to be a guide, and we understand the vulnerability and the courage that it takes to trust us in that room with you. You don't have to tell us your stories, but sometimes, a lot of times, you have to feel the pain and you have to feel the shame and the vulnerability, and that's what we're here for, to hold space. And so that's what I wanted to share today. All right, thank you for listening. If you got to the end of this, congratulations. This is a long video. But thank you also for holding space for me to share this. So bye-bye.